Hungarian is the official language of Hungary and thus an official language of the European Union. Hungarian is also one of the official languages of the Serbian province of Vojvodina and an official language of 3 municipalities in Slovenia: Hodoš, Dubrovnik and Lendava, along with Slovene. Hungarian is officially recognized as a minority or regional language in Austria, Croatia, Romania, Zakarpattia in Ukraine and Slovakia. Hungarian is a Uralic Finno-Ugric language of the Ugric group. Hungarian's ancestral language probably separated from the Obo-Ugric languages during the Bronze Age. It has been spoken in the region of modern-day Hungary since the Hungarian conquest of the Carpathian Basin in the late 9th century. The international name of the Hungarians comes from the name of the Turkic tribal alliance Onor, which means the 10 arrows or 10 tribes. Records in Old Hungarian began fragmentarily in epigraphy in the Old Hungarian script beginning in the 10th century. Isolated Hungarian words are attested in manuscript tradition from the turn of the 11th century. The oldest surviving coherent text in Old Hungarian is the funeral sermon and prayer, dated to 1192. The Old Hungarian period is by convention said to cover medieval Hungary, from the initial invasion of Pannonia in 896 to the collapse of the Kingdom of Hungary following the Battle of Mohács of 1526. Printing began during Middle Hungarian from 1526 to 1772. Events of the 1530s and 1540s brought a new situation to the country. The time of humanism, which had flourished only a few decades earlier under Matthias Corvinus, was over. The population, both in villages and towns, was terrorized by Ottoman raids, the majority of the country was lost, and the remainder began to feel the problems of the new Habsburg rule. This predicament caused backwardness in cultural life as well. However, Hungary, with the previously listed great territorial and human losses, soon entered into the new cultural era, the Reformation. This religious movement heartened many authors to find new ways. Cultural life was primarily based in Transylvania, but Royal Hungary also saw the rebirth of Hungarian culture. The first printed book written in Hungarian was printed in Krakow in the Kingdom of Poland in 1533. It is a partial Bible translation containing the Pauline epistles. The translation was done by Benedek Komjáti. The New Testament's first printed edition was published by János Szilveszter 1541. He also composed the first scientific analysis of the Hungarian language in 1539, titled Grammatica Hungaro-Latina. The previous publications, however, were not Protestants in their sense. The first directly reformed Hungarian book was Imre Ozorai's Argument, published twice in Krakow, first in 1535 and second in 1546. In the late 18th century, the language was incapable of clearly expressing scientific concepts, and several writers found the vocabulary a bit scant for literary purposes. Thus, a group of writers, most notably Ferenc Kazinczy, began to compensate for these imperfections. This movement was called the language reform and produced more than 10,000 words, many of which remain in active use today. The reforms led to an installment of Hungarian as the official language over Latin in the multi-ethnic country in 1844. The 19th and 20th centuries saw further standardization of the language, and differences between the already mutually comprehensible dialects gradually lessened. In 1920, by signing the Treaty of Trianon, Hungary lost 71% of its territories, and along with this 33% of the ethnic Hungarian population. Today the language is official in Hungary and regionally also in Romania, Slovakia, Ukraine, Serbia, Slovenia, Croatia and Austria. The main dialects of Hungarian are the Great Plains, the West Danubian, the Danube-Tisa regions, the King's Pass Hungarian, the Northeast Hungarian, the Northwest Hungarian, the Székely, and the West Hungarian. These dialects are, for the most part, mutually intelligible. The Hungarian Csango dialect is spoken primarily in Bacău County in eastern Romania. The Csango-Hungarian group has been largely isolated from other Hungarian people, and therefore preserve features that closely resemble earlier forms of Hungarian. Hungarian is an agglutinative language. It uses various affixes, mainly suffixes, but also some prefixes and a circumfix, to change a word's meaning and its grammatical function. Hungarian uses vowel harmony to attach suffixes to words. That means that most suffixes have 2 or 3 different forms, and the choice between them depends on the vowels of the head word. There are some minor and unpredictable exceptions to the rule. The Hungarian language was originally written in right-to-left Old Hungarian runes, superficially similar in appearance to the better-known Futhark runes, but unrelated. After Stephen I of Hungary established the Kingdom of Hungary in the year 1000, the old system was gradually discarded in favor of the Latin alphabet and left to right order. Although now not used in all everyday life, the old script is still known and practiced by some enthusiasts. Modern Hungarian is written using an expanded Latin alphabet and has a phonemic orthography. Pronunciation can generally be predicted from the written language. In addition to the standard letters of the Latin alphabet, Hungarian uses several modified Latin characters to represent the additional vowel sounds of the language. Speaking about early Hungarian language, no written evidence remains of the earliest Hungarian literature, but through folk tales and folk songs, elements have survived that can be traced back to pagan times. The oldest complete continuous text in Hungarian is Halotti beszéd és könyörgés, a short funeral oration written in about 1195, moving in its simplicity. The oldest poem is Ó Magyar Mária síralom, The Lamentations of Mary, a free translation from Latin. It is also the oldest surviving Uralic poem. Both the funeral sermon and the lamentations are hard to read and not quite comprehensible for modern-day Hungarians, mostly because the 26-letter Latin alphabet was not sufficient to represent all the sounds in Hungarian before diacritic marks and double letters were added. During the Middle Ages and well into the Renaissance, the language of writing was mostly Latin. Important documents include the Admonitions of St. Stephen, which includes the king's admonitions to his son Prince Imre. Among the first chronicles about Hungarian history were Gesta Hungarorum, Deeds of the Hungarians, by an unknown author, and Gesta Hunnorum et Hungarorum, Deeds of the Huns and the Hungarians, by Simon Kézai. Both are in Latin. These chronicles mix history with legends, so historically they are not always authentic. Another chronicle is the Képes Krónika, illustrated chronicle, which was written for Louis the Great. Renaissance literature flourished under the reign of King Matthias. Janus Pannonius, although he wrote in Latin, counts as one of the most important persons in Hungarian literature, being the only significant Hungarian humanist poet of the period. The first printing house was also founded during Matthias's reign by András Hess in Buda. The first book printed in Hungary was the Chronica Hungarorum. The most important poets of the period were Bálint Balassi and Miklós Zrínyi. Balassi's poetry shows medieval influences. His poems can be divided into three sections: love poems, war poems and religious poems. Zrínyi's most significant work, the epic Szigeti Veszedelem, Peril of Sziget, recounts the heroic Battle of Szigetvár, where his great-grandfather died while defending the castle of Szigetvár. Among the religious literary works, the most important is the Bible translation by Gáspár Károly, the second Hungarian Bible translation in history, the Protestant pastor of Gönc in 1590. The translation is called the Bible of Vizsoly, after the town where it was first published. The Hungarian Enlightenment took place about 50 years after the French Enlightenment. The first enlightened writers were Maria Theresa's bodyguards, György Bessenyei, János Batthyány and others. The most important poets of the time were Mihály Csokonai and Dániel Berzsenyi. The greatest figure of the language reform was Ferenc Kazinczy. The Hungarian language became feasible for all types of scientific explanations from his time, and furthermore, many new words were coined for describing new inventions. Modern Hungarian literature has recently gained some renown outside the borders of Hungary, mostly through translations into German, French and English. Some modern Hungarian authors have become increasingly popular in Germany and Italy, especially Sándor Márai, Péter Eszterházy, Péter Nádas and Imre Kertész. The latter was a contemporary Jewish writer who survived the Holocaust and won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2002. The older classics of Hungarian literature and Hungarian poetry have remained almost totally unknown outside Hungary. János Arany, a famous 19th century Hungarian poet, is still much loved in Hungary, especially his collection of ballads, among several other true classics, like Sándor Petőfi, the poet of the Revolution of 1848, Endre Ady, Mihály Babics, Dezső Kosztolányi, Attila József, Miklós Radnóti, and János Pilinszky. Other well-known Hungarian authors are Móri Okai, Frigyes Karinti, László Krasznahorkai, Ferenc Móra, Géza Gárdonyi, Zsigmond Móricz, Ferenc Molnár, Kálmán Mikszát, Gyula Illyés and Magda Szabó.